This is episode 3 of The Final Mile. The Final Mile! A series in which I finish projects that I got almost to the finish line and then abandoned. Oh, I didn't realize this was a nude beach. Final mile, it's a final mile. Final mile, it's a final mile. I hate headless instruments. Something about them just always feels incomplete and awkward. Just doesn't look right. And whenever I hate something, I have a tendency to challenge myself to create something that I hate, but make it in a way I like. For example, I hate Purple Heart, so I'm making a guitar entirely out of Purple Heart. Look forward to that video. But today we tackle the Headless Horseman. The story of this build begins with 2 elements. The first of which is a tree I found on my parents' property, a dead maple tree full of bugs. This is the exact tree right here. This is where I cut it off. And of course, it rolled down the hill. But I brought it home, I sliced it up, and because of the presence of insects, it dulled the crap out of my bandsaw blade, and I stored it in my freezer for a number of months after that to try to kill off any living creatures that might still be in there. The second element that originated this project was a piece of maple I got out of a trash pile from a cabinet maker. It was a flamed piece of maple, but with really tight curl in the middle that caused the board to bend at an angle. It was about a 2-degree angle, so I decided to use this board as the neck. This half of the angle as the body, this half of the angle as the neck itself, so it would have projection over the body. However, this board was too short to include a headstock because I decided I wanted to make it into a bass. This is a build that's made mostly out of salvage, but also with a touch of exotics and some vintage components as well. Now this build is a bass guitar, and of course it has 4 strings and 4 tuners, but I can only find 2 of the tuner buttons. The tuner buttons are made out of walnut that I ebonized and carved. If you're wondering how I learned to ebonize wood, I did so by watching the video, What is Iron Acetate, on the Woodworkers Guild of America website, and they are sponsoring this video. Woodworkers Guild of America is your online resource for woodworking instructions, ideas, and information. Whenever I have questions about woodworking or tools, the Woodworkers Guild of America is one of the best sources I've found for this type of information with really informative videos. I also watched a video called Sharpening Chisels and Plane Irons to learn how to get a better edge on mine, because I'm self-taught, and sometimes self-taught is great, and sometimes you need a little point in the right direction. And so that's what WWGOA is good for. A lot of people have mentioned my comments that I need a workbench because I just work with whatever surfaces I have, and often on the floor. So one of the projects I'm definitely going to look at WWGOA is build your own adjustable workbench. I think that would be super handy because I do have back problems too, and I like to stand when I'm working a lot of the time, and instruments are different heights and different sizes, so you often need to work on different height surfaces. So if you need a little advice or a little more detailed information about woodworking or tools, I fully recommend WWGOA. The first 1,000 people that use the QR code on screen or the link in the description will get a full premium membership for a year for $1.50. That's basically free. It's pretty awesome. Check it out. Oh yeah, this offer is valid for new members only. And hopefully they have a video on how to best organize your workshop, because I can't find the tuner buttons for this bass. I did find all of these though. This is definitely the main problem of these final miles. The final mile! They've been sitting for so long that I have misplaced some of the parts. Well, I actually had some hopeful moments where I found a spare block that I never used, one that I used to test patterns to decide what kind of carving I would do, and then one that I made into a hexagon. I was just about to go into my wood shop and see if I could find any more walnut, and it's my 5th time looking through here. Sons of... Nice. All the same, I will show you how to make iron acetate and ebonize walnut. There are only 2 ingredients involved, white vinegar and steel wool. You want to get the steel wool that comes in bulk that's not treated, because the treatment will get in the way of it being dissolved by the vinegar. Take a little chunk, chuck it in a jar. The taste is gonna move ya. Top it up with some vinegar. And the taste is gonna move you when you pop it in your mouth. Wait. And don't close the lid all the way because it will be off-gassing as it reacts. And pro tip, maybe use a plastic lid. It reacts with the tannins in the wood, so highly tannic wood such as walnut is one of the best ones to use, but you can impose tannins on the wood with a solution of black tea. I have found it does work best on a freshly sanded surface because it's freshly exposed wood with all the tannins. So we're gonna just sand down our example piece real quick. And now let's paint on some iron acetate. So this is just after a few minutes. In a second, I'll carve away a little bit of the surface wood to get a pattern like I did on the tuner buttons. So I first discovered this maple tree in the spring of 2020. I don't know if anybody remembers what happened then. But after I'd ripped it into soundboard width and froze it, I spent many hours picking out insect poo or whatever it is in there. It was really difficult and really hand cramping. And then I started trying to lay out this base. Despite the soundboard being maple, I decided to X-brace it, and because of the bracing, I had to carve away the neck through part of the body through part of the neck through part of the neck, whatever the hell it is. So that's how I ended up with this design. After partial assembly with the new Ziracote fingerboard, I found the body seemed a little on the short side. So I decided to use the extra length in my flamed maple sides and continue the body beneath the soundboard. I laminated this area with walnut and ebonized it and used some ebony dowels and maple feet to reinforce it, but I still think I need to reinforce the corners here. Then it came time to address the headstock, or lack thereof. I started by installing banjo hardware to act as the string stops. In the past, I've also used drawer pulls or pieces of drawer pulls as tailpiece. Once the function of the headstock was addressed, I moved on to form and I started laying out an ebony headstock. I started out with a full blank window, but then I decided maybe it needed something in the middle, mostly for structural integrity. So of course, I found the least structurally sound piece of wood and use that. I passed this piece of wood on the beach like 5 times before I decided to take it home. And I sliced it thin for the headstock. And I ended up with a headstock composed of 15 pieces of ebony and 1 piece of whatever the H kind of wood this is. What the H? The headstock, though beautiful, is delicate, and so I am going to have to reinforce it. I'm thinking about some decorative pieces on the front and back to glue the sides to the top a little better than they are now, because currently it is more delicate than a Gibson headstock. Burn! Let's find some ebony. So I'm playing with design ideas. I kind of like how brutalist and rectangular everything is, so I don't think adding this circle is going to be good. I'm also not loving just a straight across thing, but might be what we're looking at. I decided I hated all of those options, and I'm pivoting and just filling it with super glue and promising never to run it into anything ever. Sound like a deal? I won't hit it if you don't. I started with some thin to permeate the cracks, and now I'm going to put a little medium on to fill it out. After sanding down and oiling the headstock, looking good. Just gotta make sure I don't run it into anything. Then I moved on to designing the bridge. I started by carving out the intonation, but decided it needed a little more air in it. This is how the bridge turned out. Quite happy with this design. Very balanced in my mind. I achieved these cutouts by drilling one hole here, and then cutting through with a coping saw and then sanding it flat. Then I moved on to the tuner buttons. I cut out some cubes out of walnut and ebonized them with iron acetate. Looking at the photo now, I actually kind of like the full black, but as you know, I did carve them. I left 2 sides blank and 2 sides carved and the top carved. Why haven't I installed them? Well, the shellac on the back maple is not perfect. I had to redo it, and it's super hard with the tuning buttons in place, and there's no way to get them out of the way. It looks decent, but there are imperfections in the shellac application that I cannot abide. So I may sand it down for a 3rd time, and instead of shellac, do an oil finish just on the back. And then we can put the buttons on. Well, it turns out I don't think I need to refinish the back. I just needed to knock down some high points and then buff it out, and it should be satisfactory. This maple, by the way, is big leaf maple that came out of Chilliwack, BC. All right, I'm gonna glue the knobs on now, and I put some cardboard spacers to make sure they're all level and the same height. And in case there's any drips, I slid in some paper. I flipped it on its back so the drips will go back into the buttons instead of onto the guitar, and I'm gonna put a little bit of weight on there in the form of a buckwheat hull pillow. Here they are. Maybe they're not dry yet. Dang it. Well, that sucks. Hey, Buggy. Doesn't it suck? Obviously, epoxy might have been a better move, or even hot hide glue, but I went with fish glue and hopefully it works. But if it doesn't, try again. The knobs are attached to a plate that's under this plate that's glued in place, and if you remove this screw, they come loose, and then you can pull them through the pickup hole. The pickup is what many will refer to as a Gibson P13, but it was more commonly used by Harmony for more years, so it's more of a Harmony pickup than anything, but Gibson may have designed it. They definitely used it first. As to the electronics, the pickup is being finicky. Hear that? The output jack is finicky. My volume and tone work well, but we're gonna have to open this up and see what the issue is. Hopefully, it's just the jack. Although, we'll see. The other massive blunder I made yet again is forgetting to add a ground. So I'm going to have to maybe go in through the holes in the back and wire all the tuners together to ground them, and then strip back the silk on the wires and then have them grounded through here. The only other option is to ground them through the bridge or all the way up here through the nut, but I don't think that's possible anymore. Another detail you may have noticed is I lined the tuner slots with wasp paper. It's made out of a wasp nest. We're going to take off the pickup and see if we can find our issue. To get the pickup out, I think I first have to push it in. Ooh, it's catching on the truss rod. Oh boy. genuinely using gravity on my side to try to get this out. Okay, I'm pretty sure it's a grounding issue with the pickup. I'm hoping that this razor blade will help it clear the truss rod nut. No luck so far. Sometimes art and practicality don't meld that well. That is a design flaw. God damn it. Maybe there'll be fractionally more space if I pull off the bezel. I'm not seeing much more space. Whew. See, it was catching on that truss rod, but now I got it through. Now that it's through, I think I can get it back out the hole one way or another. There we go. Well, that took way too long. I need to open up this casing and see what's up. Okay, I found the issue. The ground goes to the inside of the coil, which goes to this metal part here, the inner part of the bobbin. And that's intermittently touching and not touching, and that's the problem. So I'm not going to attempt to solder the wire to the bobbin. I'm just going to extend the surface area of the contact with the pole piece and add some padding in here to help push it down into the ground. The copper tape didn't work, so instead I put some braided copper wire in, and that's going to be the grounding point. We're good to go with 7.6K ohms and an Alnico bar magnet. These P13s are good pickups. And to give it just a little more down pressure, I'm gonna put a thin piece of fabric here, and that will push down on the magnet and help keep the signal grounded. Obviously hindsight is 20/20, and I would have connected all of these bolts, but I added some solder and now they are invisibly grounded to one another, and now I just need to run one ground wire from the jack to one of the tuners and make sure there's exposure on the silking part. Whilst that dries, we will add our ground wire to the tuning machines. Alrighty. Got a wire through. We're going to see if we can solder it to the tuner and then to the jack. Well, that didn't work. The solder wouldn't stick, so new plan. Just wedge the wire in and tighten the screw back up. All right, there we go. Because Because I have one broken string and the rest are kind of tarnished, I was going to pull out a set of chromes, and then I remembered, well, I didn't remember, I looked and the chromes were way too short. I actually made this 34-inch scale. Okay, the fretboard looks pretty nice, but since I have the strings off, I'm gonna polish it up again. So this is like 3000 grit sanding cloth. See if I can get rid of that playware that I put in. You may have noticed that the Zero-Cote fretboard is different than the one I did the layout with, because I actually ended up flipping it over and using the darker side due to the fact that it was bowed in this direction. And so if I did it the other way, it would have an inclination to pull the neck the other way. And also the darker wood, of course, is harder than the sapwood. I actually ended up pulling the fretboard back to 1000 grit, then did 2500 grit. Now I'm doing the polishing cloth, and then I'm going to come through with my board butter. Let's go get some strings. Went on down to Tapestry Music, got myself a set of chromes because it was the only flats I could find there. So be it. They were $73. Ouch. If any string company wants to sponsor me. No returning them now. I hope they magically change their silk color to black, because that's my preference. Nope, still blue. The first string I pull out is the low E. I have no choice but to put it on the bass because I need to finish it, and they only had one set in stock. Well, I contacted D'Addario about their faulty string, and we'll see how that goes. In the meantime, let's get this tuned up. So the bass is 53.5 inches tall, so surely it must weigh a ton, right? Wrong.
Actual weight, 4 pounds 15 ounces, or 22.36 grams.
According to the internets, a bass will have to be 19.5 inches long to weigh 4.63 pounds.
But seriously, this bass weighs half as much as the average.
So let's hear it.
Are you even remotely prepared for this? I think you are. I'm going to start with a purely acoustic sample because this is technically an acoustic guitar. I mean, it's whatever I made. It's a X-braced maple, wormy maple top, so it's not like acoustically incredible, but we're going to sample it that way first. Ooh, fingerprints. I should have taken some glamour shots before I started touching it. Okay, here we go. Here's what it sounds like. That was just a quick sample, and now I'm a little bit nervous to plug it in. Hopefully everything I did to fix the electronics and the grounds worked, and we'll find out right now. Let me turn on the amp one sec. Here it is plugged in. I gotta be careful not to hit this headstock on anything.
taking the base to see the tree it came off of.
It's now about the told you to do. Everything will be alright.